Welcome back to another episode of Dream Team, where we interview former players about their all-time 1 to 11, the players who've helped mould their career, and some of the characters they've played with. Tonight we're here with Ben Wathen.
Ratty!
Ben's dressed like Gerard Butler, as you can see, and unfortunately for the last few years, Ben's been seen more on a physio bench than on the cricket field. But let's hope that can change in the next couple of years. So welcome, Ben.
No, it's an absolute pleasure. And Ratty, thank you for having me. I know you've done a few of these now, but I was waiting for the call, and I know I got that a few months ago, and I was super busy. But I would encourage anyone else to take up Ratty's proposal if you have been invited. Absolutely, it's a brilliant idea, and certainly the last few, I think Johners and Granty have been fantastic as well. So yeah, no, I think it's a great idea, mate. Well done.
Thank you. Okay, so a little introduction about you, Ben. When was your first? So you've been around the club for years. You've been around for years. When was your first game? Your first adult game? Can you remember that?
So yeah, I have to go way back. So I remember probably 1990. I was probably 10 or 11, and like always, I followed the old man around the circuit. And I think we were at Buckhurst Hill at the time, and I was just farting around on the sideline. And Chris Hayburn pulled a sickie in the changing rooms, and he was laid out on the floor. He was moaning that he couldn't field. It was a blistering hot day, and I was asked to go and field for the first team. And I think I probably touched the ball twice. I probably needed 2 or 3 players to help my arm in at the time, but it was great, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And we're talking about some very, very good players that I played with at that young age of 10 or 11, I think it was. But yeah, that was my first memory of playing cricket, albeit by default. But no, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I followed the old man around, probably the age of about 4 or 5. And I've got fond memories as a youngster. Obviously, the team back then was very different to what it is now, and obviously the standard is very different. But turning up and just a few names. I mean, others will probably remember the likes of Pete Norris, Riff Buter, Hayburn, Ken Porter, Barry Jones, Heiser. These are all sort of household names that used to turn up every week in, week out, and they would be. They would produce, they would be brilliant to watch. And all right, I was probably 4 or 5, so I didn't really understand. But certainly as I got a little bit older, they were great to watch. Fantastic players.
Great stuff. Okay, we'll start with your 1 to 11. We'll come on to your influences in a little bit. Your opener, number 1, who are you going with?
Number 1, again, we go way back. I've played with, I mean, it's an obvious one. It's Newman Calm. We've had many a battle in the nets. I'm a big fan of nets. Obviously, in that January, February time, I get quite excited. I still get excited, even though I probably haven't been for a couple of years training. And those indoor nets, I remember Newman as well. We very rarely missed a net session, either of us. And he would be on my team sheet. He'd be number 1 on my team sheet. He'd be the first on there without a doubt. Very, very good player. He's got different gears, which I quite like. He can stink it out. He can see off the new ball. He can face 30 balls for 5 or 6 runs, and then the next 30 balls he could get 30 or 40 very quickly. So he would be my, like I say, first name on the team sheet.
Did you tour with Newman the year he broke all? He got loads of runs, and he won Tour in Devon.
It was, and I'll be honest, this is not about Newman Calm. Obviously, it's obviously about me. But I was on that tour, and normally it was incredible. He opened pretty much every game. I remember him hitting rooftops, missing tiles from houses. He was phenomenal. You couldn't touch him. Great player, really good player, and he hasn't aged either.
No, perfect man to have as a tourist, given he doesn't drink.
Yeah, loves a drink, loves a banter, asks a lot of questions. I mean, to be honest, he should have been a copper. I've never known a person to ask so many bloody questions. But no, he's a great lad. And I say he hadn't aged at all, and he can still do a job as far as I'm concerned in the first team and beyond, 5-10 years time. I think he's brilliant.
Definitely. Okay, moving on to number 2. Who have you got?
Number 2 is difficult because I had fond memories of a guy called Pete Roble. Now, Pete Roble, again, a natural sportsman, very, very good. I remember at Customs and Excise, used to work for Customs, and Greenie, you'll probably remember this, Nigel Green, that, we'd have sports days and sports socials. he would be one of those natural gifted sportsmen, you know, but as a cricketer, fantastic to watch. But for me, it was Brad Everett. Brad Everett came over as an overseas. I think you said you limited to 2 overseas.
That's fine.
Brad was fantastic. He stayed with us as well. Lovely lad. Left-handed, again, very aggressive, very technically, very gifted, but a joy to watch. I think John has mentioned it the other night about, you know, when certain players go out to bat, you know, whatever you're doing, either, you know, around the boundary with Bells, playing a bit of, you know, ball or whatever it was, there'll be a certain cricketer or a batsman that goes out and you go back to the clubhouse, get a deck chair and you sit there and watch them. And Brad was one of those. He was a fantastic player, great player.
All-rounder, bowl as well?
He did. I mean, he bowled a bit of, I mean, he thought he was a leg spinner. He bowled some filth. Probably, you know, on the same level as probably Spearsy, you know, when you got players like that who think they can bowl and they turn their arm over. And it wasn't great, but he got wickets. But no, Brad's a great guy as well. Yeah, very good.
Okay, good stuff. So, number 3, important position.
Number 3, I again, this is really hard because, I mean, I'm sure you've had many a conversation with members, but it's really hard to pick your top 11. And I picked my top 11 purely on the basis of ability, you know, talent, personality, consistency, and match winners. And, you know, I've played with an awful lot of players that could do that, but not on a consistent basis. For me, Ramesh Paul, back in the day, I don't know whether you met Ron.
No, before my time. Heard a lot about him.
Yeah, Ramesh, great player, very classy, Sri Lankan, very flamboyant batsman. Just quality, could take quicks apart, could take spin apart. And again, he was one of those batsmen that you would go out to watch. He would be that good. You know, absolutely. Yeah, great player. I remember painting his house actually with Newman one year. And I don't think we actually got paid for it. I think he just paid us in sort of barbecues. But yeah, really, really great guy, great personality. I think he's in Switzerland now. Whether he's playing cricket, I don't know. But yeah, nice guy, great guy.
Good player. Okay, so you're talking about Brad and Rom and some of the names you mentioned earlier. When you were growing up, so sort of coming into the first team, what type of age were you? 15, 16 when you first came in?
So yeah, bang on, 15 or 16. You've done your research.
No, that's a lucky guess. So who would have been the big influences on you as you came through?
That's a good one because there are so many. Obviously, if you're following your old man who's a bit of a face on the circuit, you're going to be mixing with some very, very talented cricketers.
Yeah.
I remember, I mean, you know, back in the youth, we had a youth team, and I think there was a youth team league or a tournament. That was in 92, 93, I think it was. And Ken Porter, of course, was on the scene. He was phenomenal. And again, I think I backed John's quote up about, you know, he never knew anyone's name. It was always, yeah, boy, well bowled, boy, or nice shot, boy. He would never, I mean, it wasn't his fault. He just couldn't remember all the players he played with. But youth team-wise, Ken Porter, we had some very good youngsters in Faisal Raja, Newman, obviously, Afan Khan, his brother, Tim Driver, Neil 18, Spearsy. We were all together as a fantastic youth team. And I haven't got a clue what the youth team policy is now. But as a group of youngsters coming through the ranks, I mean, you couldn't ask for a better group of youngsters. And obviously, when the fourth team came looking and knocking at the door and said, "Look, come and play at Victory Sports," you know, the likes of Doc Singh, Robin Edmonds, Kev Salt, Craig Carter. These were all fantastic influences of my early career as a 13-year-old, 14-year-old kid. You know, after the fourth team, it was straight into the third team, the likes of Liam Buckler, Brian Perriman, Pete Stannard, Graham Butler, Monty, Phil Alcock, not Dave Alcock, his brother Phil, passed me the salt, Phil. They were great lads, and I owe them an awful lot because they made, you know, certainly as a youngster, it's very difficult. You're very nervous, but, you know, playing with the likes of that mob, it was great. It was very difficult to play with the likes of Robin Edmonds, obviously. Bit of a character. He couldn't get away with anything that half of the things he came out with when he was, you know, in the change room. But great lads, and, you know, certainly they were heavily influential on my career. Not too many twos games. I think I went from the thirds straight into the first team. I don't actually think I played a second 11 game. I think the old man was captain at the time, and without being biased, I think he had a decision to make. I think it was either Pete Norris or someone had called off, and he was struggling for a seamer. And I think, you know what it's like with those selection committees, they can be quite heated. quite heated. And he decided to go with a 15 or 16-year-old son. And obviously, you're going to get a little bit of criticism. It's like, well, no, you can't just put your son in the team. Is he good enough? Is he ready? And Dad said, no, he is. I absolutely think he is ready. And I give him massive credit for that, because he was challenged big time. And I played the first 11 game. I think I played at Ardley Green. And it was a scorching hot day. And I think Adrian Rollins, was playing at the time. Big, tall, Robert Rollins' brother, big, tall, 6 foot plus opener. Very intimidating. I think I don't know whether I got him. I think I might have got him out. I think he snicked off. I think the old man caught one in the gully, and we just went off. It was fantastic. I think I got 2 wickets that day, but it was, again, massive hand to the old man for sort of certainly taking the plunge and believing in me. So yeah, that was the start of my first team career, really.
We'll come back to your old man in a bit. Okay, moving on back to your team, number 4.
Number 4. So no questions. It was an easy one. Scott Rodgie. Again, he's currently playing first grade for Northern District, CC out in Sydney. Fantastic player. We had him for about a year and a half. Again, he stayed at our house. Nice lad, big, strong, sort of 18, 19-year-old, hands like buckets, but what a talent. I mean, crikey. He technically very good, went through the gears very quickly, and he could bowl as well. He's a very good seam bowler, swung it a little bit in and out. But as a talent, crikey, he was phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal cricketer. Unfortunately, we tried to get him back, I think, a second year, but I think he played half a season. I think he had a family bereavement or something. I think he had to go back.
Oh.
But yeah, what a talent. And I think he's doing very well in first grade back in Sydney. Well, no,
I remember playing with Scott on tour in 2005. It was the Thursday at Seaton. I'll be quick with this. And on the Wednesday night, we all went out. And it was me, Steve Richardson, and Tommy Kenton, I think, had to carry him back from the town to the uni. Yeah. He could not stand up. So we got him home, chucked him in the shower, and left him. The next day, me and Richardson were like, we can't tell Ken that he's struggling, or else we'll have to play. And we don't want to play. So we're like, let's go down to Seaton, leave him. So somehow people got Rogie down to Seaton. And how he was alive was a miracle. But they had an Aussie, maybe knew him from Sydney or something. Something at that point just clicked, and 2 hours later, Scott was 168 not out. How he did it, it must have just been an Aussie quick. Yeah.
Yeah. And they raised their game. You know what it's like. You get an Aussie versus an Aussie, an Indian, West Indian. They all raise their game against each other.
This was phenomenal cricketer. Okay, moving on to 5.
5 again. I don't like to use the same phrases, but again, what a cricketer this guy is. I mean, unfortunately, I only got to play with him for maybe, I don't know, collectively combined, maybe 13 or 14 games. But Joe Robbins, a bit of a club favourite, certainly the last few years, getting the club where it was in terms of, Div 2 up to the Premier League. But a talent that I have no idea how he hasn't progressed beyond, certainly the top level at club level. He's brilliant as a club cricketer, but how he hasn't, burst into the Essex Twos and even first class cricket is, I think it's absolutely criminal. I think he's a fantastic player, and if you're, he could open, he could go 4, 5, and this is after, say, he might have bowled 15, 20 overs. Yeah. What a talent. Very, very relaxed, very chilled bloke, very calm. I liked him as a captain because he didn't panic. He didn't, he didn't shoot from the hip. And he was a great talent. Well, he is a great talent. He hasn't retired.
It is. Okay, so moving on to number 6.
6, I'm going to have to put the old man in, mate. I'm going to have to put the old man. I'm going to have to have him as captain because I'm told, again, as a sort of 4 or 5, 5-year-old kid, I don't know, I wouldn't remember him too much, but every person I speak to, back in that era, they just said they loved playing with the old man. Great talent, very, very competitive, very bright captain on the field. And I would have him in there just because of he's an all-rounder. He'd take wickets, he would dig in, he would score runs, good fielder. So yeah, and an influence, and I would absolutely have him in there.
So did you played a lot with your dad as when he was captain, or did your paths sort of miss each other?
I probably had a season with him. I remember we had a I think we batted together briefly. I think we put on a partnership, but it was just the fact that you were on the field with him. He just had that aura about him.
Yeah.
I wasn't the easiest of bowlers or all-rounders to manage back then. I was a little, shit. I think, I was very passionate. I had bags of energy, and I think Craig Porter would probably tell you the same, and Ian. I wasn't easy to manage, and I think because he was my old man, and that I had to, he felt that, obviously I was his responsibility, and he's a reflection of you, or him.
Yeah.
I think it was a big call. I think certainly to put me in at 15 or 16 in the first was a big call, but I'd have him in there every day of the week. Good player.
Yeah. From what I hear about people speak about your dad, he had the ability to get the best out of people by talking to them.
Yeah, but he wouldn't make any nonsense either. If you stepped out of line, he would tell you. I think John has felt that. I think when he turned out for him, I think he either went at night on the source and he turned up, and I think SJ didn't put 100% in, and I think the old man basically threatened to send him off the pitch. You're not welcome.
Yeah.
So he knew that, and this was later on in his career. But you knew where you stood with him. He would be prepared to lose games to try and win them. I know that. I know when he gave up, it was a shame. He moved to Scotland. And obviously the Scottish cricket not quite as popular as it is over here, but good player, great player.
Yeah, I played once with your dad. I can't remember the exact service. I think it was a tour game, midweek game. So we batted, and didn't get a great score, perhaps 160, 170. I must have got 30 or 40. They obviously didn't have a third man in that day or something. So I've done all right. Yeah, just knocked it around. But at tea, your dad came and said, "What about Scott? I'd like you to open the bowling." And I was like, "Oh, Steve, I don't do opening the bowling, mate. It could go everywhere." And he just said, "No, I think you've batted well. You're obviously on a bit of a high. You open the bowling for us because we need someone to do it. And then Nigel can bowl in the middle." And I was like, "Oh, okay." Went out, got a wicket or two. And as you say, you think, "Oh, I can do this," rather than like the captain might say, "Oh, you'll have to do a few overs just to get the new ball, and then we'll do that." So, good.
Yeah, good. He's the sort of character. I think people, you get captains, and of course you should want to play for your captain.
Yeah.
But he, by all accounts, I understand that many players wanted to play for him. They bought into what he was trying to achieve there.
Yeah.
And you talk to any of the old guard, back when he played, and they all speak very highly of him, which is lovely to hear. And he obviously, the legacy through myself, obviously, and hopefully for my kids as well. I'd love to see that as well. But good player. Massive influence.
Okay, so we just changed tack a little bit here. So when you were growing up, what was it like being around the club? So your parents have been in the club drinking. So you'd have been running around Essex weeks. What about Essex weeks? Great times.
You know what? Yeah, they were. I mean, the club back then, you couldn't beat it. It was fantastic. I love what they've done at the clubhouse now is great, but I love the bar in the middle of the clubhouse. It's the heartbeat of the club. And I remember we had some fantastic cricket weeks. When Essex turned up, and you had, I think my first recollection of cricket week was 1990, Essex Glamorgan, when Viv Richards was down there. I think he got 100 in both innings. He just looked phenomenal. And you had the likes of Courtney Walsh and Caddick, Mushtaq Ahmed, Nassau, Mark Waugh. They all graced the South Church Park turf, and it was great to watch. And as a 12, 13-year-old kid watching these fantastic, I've left Gucci out, Gucci, they're fantastic players. And, if you're a massive cricket follower and that is your life, you look for the fixture list. You think, when are Essex playing at South Church Park? And, you're talking about an awful lot of work goes into organising those sort of events as well. And I look back at some of the club members, and I don't think too many people, well, a lot of the youngsters probably won't know these people are, but I look back and I think that the people that were influential on my growing up and my experience of the club were people, even Ken Cater. Remember Ken Cater? Always think, when those AGMs at the Civic Centre, was he awake? Was he asleep? When Ken was reading out his reports, his annual reports. Ken Cater, Ken Porter, Craig, Nige, Johnny, Pauline Heiser, Eddie Pike, Kev Salt, Craig Carter, dinners. I mean, crikey, these guys. I always think a club needs a fantastic core. And back then, Southend had an unbelievable core. The likes of Beju, I think unsung hero, and even the likes of later on, maybe Richard Wiggins, the statistician.
Yeah.
I know he passed away a few years ago, but what a guy. He's very, very, very quiet lad behind the scenes. He'd turn up, and what was quite annoying about Wiggins, that there could be an absolute blockbuster of a game going on. And, you'd have, 20 needed off the last 3 overs. And Wiggins would literally have been there all day, from the warm-up to he'd done a bit of scoring, he'd done some drinks, and he would leave. He'd leave the game. So with 3 overs to go, he'd bugger off. I'm like, Wiggo, where are you going? And he was that sort of person. He was, I got a lot of time for the unsung heroes like Dinmore, Wiggins, Johnny and Pauline Heiser. They were the club, and Eddie Pike and Ken. They were the cricket club, as far as I'm concerned. And obviously later on, you had the likes of, obviously, Bully, Steve Richardson, Spearsy does an awful lot for the club. Yourself now, it's kind of, they've passed the torch on, and you need doers. I'm not a doer. I'm a player. I'm a selfish git. I love playing. I love turning up on a Saturday and just playing cricket. I'm not. I think I've been affiliated to the club for like 30 odd years. I think I've only ever painted the clubhouse once. I think it was in 30 years, and that's. When you look at all the work that other people have done behind the scenes, and I think even now, like Kev Salt and Craig Carter, they're all doers. And I think it's the unsung heroes behind the scenes that you don't realise how much work they do. But I remember the clubhouse, I think on a Friday, I was talking to Pauline the other day, and Pauline used to mention about Kev Sargent, the Friday nights, with the guitar up at the clubhouse, and it was packed, absolutely packed. They were good times, mate. They're good. As a youngster, all you do is look on and observe. I remember seeing like Richard Pike, gridders used to turn up at 8, 9 o'clock in the evening with a couple of dolly birds on their arm, bring them up at the clubhouse. You just think they're in the corner and think, wow, look at those guys. That's when you know you've made it, when you've got a dolly bird in the corner and you bring up to the clubhouse. Obviously, it's not, but yeah, very, very, very fond memories of the clubhouse as a youngster, mate.
So with the Essex week, good times as well. Obviously, Essex playing, like you say. The opposition get involved much? Did you see much of the opposition?
In the Essex week? Played?
Or would they just disappear, the opposition teams?
So the Essex week, they used to cut. I mean, I think it was a 4-day or 5-day it started. The matches never really used to last longer than 3 days.
Yeah.
I think the games were over, and they just wanted to sort of either go home or go out in the evening in town. But I really enjoyed the Essex weeks. Good fun, great fun. But no, lots of fond memories, and I don't get that sense nowadays. Probably because I'm a little bit removed from what's going on at the club. But I'm never going to forget that.
Okay, so back to your team, number 7.
7 again. He'd probably frustrate many people, but I'm going to go with Ian Heiser. Okay. And again, he was a bit of, it sounds a bit corny, but he was a bit of a father figure. He invested an awful lot of time in me. He believed in me. He was constantly in my ear hole at mid-on, mid-off, saying, do this. Because I didn't have a brain. When I played cricket, I didn't have a brain. Yes, I had ability, but I didn't listen to people. If I did, I'd probably do a lot better than I did. But Ian Heiser, great player. Love watching him as a youngster. Fantastic left arm spinner. Could change a game, and that's what I like. I like players that could change the game. Flip of a coin. He would definitely be one of those players. You could either open with him, or you could have him at sort of 6 or 7 and still play exactly the same way. Very, very aggressive.
And a captain who probably got the best out of you.
No, he did. I didn't necessarily agree with him, and it was like any 19 or 20-year-old kid, who thinks they know it all. They think, I just want to bowl quick. I just want to knock the batsman's head off. I've got this. And he'd obviously grown up with some good captains himself and playing some good teams, and he was trying to, certainly transfer his knowledge onto me, and I just probably didn't listen. I think that was the biggest problem. But good captain, very, very good. Got a lot of time for him. Good player, very good player.
Okay, number 8.
8, I'm going to go for my keeper. Now, I've played with some very good keepers over the years, but there's one standout. If I go through the sort of 2 or 3 that that didn't make it. You know, the likes of Dave Wilkins, you know, the old Rod Stewart lookalike.
Yeah.
Very, very pretty, and he looked quite good when the ball didn't come to him. But, you know, I didn't put him in there just because he was a little bit clumsy. The likes of Joe Daly, remember Joe?
Yeah, good keep for a while.
I wouldn't say he was naturally gifted. He worked very hard at his glove work, but didn't quite make it. Spearsy, natural, very, very good gloveman. You'd have him in most sides, Spearsy. But for me, and I think most people have selected him, Dale Hackney. I mean, what a gloveman. Anyone who can stand up after, you know, ball one or over two, whatever it is, and if you're a quickie, you're like, what are you doing? Like it's quite, I'd say it's if you see a keeper come up after an over or 2 overs as a quickie, it's demoralising, isn't it? It's like, you know, you're not quick enough, ball's not carrying through, it's not hitting the gloves. I didn't mind Dale doing that. I had issues with Dave Wilkins because he couldn't stand up. You know, Joe as well, he'd always go back, and Spearsy, but for Dale, I didn't have an issue with him coming up after over one or over two. If it was, he'd be that quick. Say, Ben, ball's not coming through. Let's stand up. And I would just watch him. It's a joy to watch. He was brilliant. He was first class, and he could pitch in with some runs. Probably a bit like me. He probably didn't make the most of his talent. You know, very good, underestimated batsman. But it was his glove work. You know, you turn up just to watch Dale play. And the filth behind the stumps as well. You know, he would earn you wickets just with the filth. Him and Spearsy at first slip. You know, Johnny Horn. You know, it was a great slip cordon. But no, he was a fantastic keeper. And again, I think he came from a Kent background he played with some very good players.
Yeah, very good cricketer. Okay, so number 9 wins your bowlers now, I guess.
9, I'm going to go with Farhad Masood. So again, another overseas. I've got 3 overseas. That's really bad. But another overseas, I think we got him on the cheap, even though I think we're not supposed to say that we paid for players. But he came and stayed with Newman. Yeah. And I've never seen anything like it. I heard lots of rumours about how good this guy was. I think he played, was it Habib Bank?
Not sure who he played for, but I know he got 300 first-class wickets. Yeah.
He turned up, and obviously he wasn't your stereotypical overseas where you want an Aussie or a Kiwi or a Safa that would just come and help the youth and drink under the table. You know, he wasn't going to be that. He was going to be egg and cress around Newman's, you know, watching what they want to watch. And he would turn up on a Saturday, and that was it. But he was phenomenal. I remember a game that at 5s, I know Spearsy was keeping. And I just remember just watching Spearsy. He was walking, literally, I think he was about 2 or 3 yards from the boundary. 5s was a quick deck anyway. But 5 just came in, and the ball was just still rising as Spearsy was taking it up here. But great bowler. I remember a game at Hadley, and you remember games and venues that you think, oh, I had a really good, I've got a really good record there.
Yeah.
Or that's the sort of ground I really, really excel at. And Hadley was never a ground that I excelled at. I looked forward to playing them because it was a local rival. I loved playing against them, the camaraderie. But I turned up and we had foul. Every time we played Hadley, we were, taken off we were sort of, rolled off the park. They always beat us. But we had this absolute gun in our back pocket, Farhad Masood. And I remember he had the bottom end, which again, his run up started from the boundary, and he came tearing in. And I remember him getting Adam Fleming in the nuts. I think Johnny Horn was at short leg. And, Adam Fleming, love him as I do. He's a good captain, good player. He always had the better of Southend. He always, quite arrogant. But Farhad got him. He tied him in knots, and Farhad got him in the box. And I just remember the image, I still see it now. Adam Fleming literally on all fours, just crawling out of his crease. And Johnny Horn just picked the ball up and just literally walked over and just knocked the bails off. And I think Adam Fleming was the most delighted man on that ground that day because Farhad was quick. I mean, Hadley was I think as Gas Chambers would say, it's a spitting cobra. It was a deck that you wouldn't want to bat on it, but face Farhad Masood on it, you wouldn't want to. But great player. He won us many games. We had sides. I don't know if it was Div 2. Was it Div 1 or Div 2? But we would bowl.
Yeah.
What was it?
2, I think.
Was it 2?
Division 2, yeah.
but he would be bowling sides out for 80 or 100. But I quite liked the combination. Like he had raw, genuine pace, and
Yeah.
I was like a bit of medium swing. But yeah, great player. Yeah, a lot of time for him. But unfortunately, when you pick a player like that, you're not going to get investment in the youth. You're not going to get
No.
investment in the game. It's literally I'll play and then collect my bag and disappear. Which
Yes, it was fair enough. So good player. So obviously Farhad's had a bit of a spell in a long career in first class cricket. Let's come on to your Essex career. You had, we believe, 5 games for the Essex Twos around the time 2000, around that sort of time.
It was 2001, and it was, I'm going to correct you there, it was four championship games, 5 in total, because it was Peter Such's testimonial that I really enjoyed over at Billericay. But it was one of those where if you're playing in Div 3, it's very difficult to get recognised.
Yeah.
And if you're wanting to make it, if you're wanting to progress, you've got to be playing Div 1. They didn't have a Premier League at the time, I don't think, but did they? No, I can't remember. But Div 1, Div 2, you've got to be playing good standard of cricket. So for me, it was great because I was a late developer. I didn't go through any of the Essex, the under 12s, 13. I didn't do any of that. I burst on the scene probably when I was 19, 20, where I had some consistent sort of seasons in Div 3, Div 2, 40, 50 wickets. And that was recognised, which was great. And obviously that was when the whole Essex train came along, and it was great. But what I didn't do is I probably didn't give it the respect that I should have done.
Yeah.
You look at the setup now. You've got nutritionists, you've got physios, you've got health advice, you've got it all. Whereas back then it was like you could still go to Mayhem. You could still go. Mayhem wasn't around then, but you could still go to Chameleon. You go talk on a Saturday, and then you think you still go out on Monday or Tuesday and turn up to county. But no, I remember being selected. I was asked to come up for a couple of trials, and I did really well. And I was asked to be part of the academy, and it was the first year that Essex had set up an academy, and it was run by a guy called John Childs, massive influence on Essex. And I got on really well with him, and it was great. And in the academy was the likes of, I don't want to name drop, but Ravi Bapara, Mark Patini, Tony Palladino. Who else did you have? Cookie was there, but he was came a bit later. But
A bit younger,
there's some cracking players in there, and we all got on really well. And to this day, I still think Ravi stole my career. When I look back at that academy, he was very raw. He was all over. He was kamikaze. He wasn't the batsman that he obviously turned out to be, or the bowler he turned out to be. He was very raw. But no, I was very privileged. I played 4 games. I played Northants was the first game, and I played against a guy called Graham Swan. You may remember him. He was on the team sheet that day. None for 58 was my first performance. I was then at the Rose Bowl. I think it had only been literally completed a year or maybe 2 years down the line, and it was at Hampshire. I got 2 for 63 that day. Again, didn't set the world on fire. And it was at home. I'd never played at Chelmsford before, and it was at home to Middlesex when I probably realised that this wasn't going well and this wasn't for me. The standard was that much higher. You've got your club cricket, you've got your twos cricket, and then your first class. And that was the realisation for me. I didn't cover myself any glory. I got 1 for 31 off 12. But it was the manner of it, and I think we were in trouble. Bear in mind, this was the likes of Graham Napier was there, Mike Arlett was coming to the end, and Such was coming to the end of their career. And I was asked to be night watchman. And first things were all bowled out for 120, I think it was. And I think Middlesex they totaled 400 in the first dig. And we batted again, and I was asked to bat 3 as night watchman. And I was so excited. I was absolutely buzzing. I was always number 11. And so I was itching to get the pads on, got out there, and I was trying, the idea was to protect Graham Napier at 4, and I didn't do it. And I went out there, I faced the 6th ball of an over. I pushed it around the corner for 1, did my job, got off strike. And then the next over, I played a booming drive, snicked off, went to second or third slip, and I went walking. It was the longest walk back at the county ground, and it was greeted with deathly silence. John Charles didn't look at me. Eilert was, wasn't, his head was down, shaking his head. Justin Bishop as well. I hadn't done my job, and it was then the realisation that I wasn't quite up to standard. And then the final nail in the coffin was at Coggleshall against Derbyshire, when I think I opened the bowling that day, and it was I remember it was another really hot day, and I came across a guy called Richard Illingworth, who you remember, he was coming to the end of his career, and I remember bowling him 3 deliveries, and every one went out the park, and he must have been, I don't know, mid to late 40s, where he was. He was coming to the end of his career, and you've got this 21-year-old sort of, up and coming cricketer who's trying to make it, and you've got a guy who's coming to the end of his career. He's just dispatched you nonchalantly over sort of mid wicket for 6, 3 in a row. I'll never forget it. And they weren't bad deliveries either. He just was on it. So that for me was a realization. I owe an awful lot. I must mention this guy because I haven't yet. Is Laffers. And Laffers was such an influence. I didn't drive back then. I didn't have my license, but he was there. He would take me to the academy during the week. He was there at weekends. But he used to drive me there, and it was 2-hour sessions. But if I turn back the clock, I remember being part of the academy, and I also remember being told by John Childs to turn up on a Saturday because they had an outdoor training session. I was like, fine, absolutely fine. Got there. And I didn't know who was going to be there. I thought it was like an Essex under-19s or, another academy squad, meet up with them. And I got there, and I was probably the second one there. John Childs was there, and I think another chap. And I put my bag down, and I went to talk to John. And I came back, and obviously the clubhouse, the change room was full up. And I looked at my kit, my bag, and I was like, where's my bag? And I looked at the state, it's literally dotted all over the changing room. It'd been decimated. It'd been launched. I was like, who's done this? And what I didn't realise, I looked around that change room, you had Nasser Hussain, you had Ronnie Irani, you had Mark Ilott, you had Ashley Cowan, Ricky Anderson. I was like, I'm sorry, I thought I got the wrong changing room. And I said, I'm really sorry. And I started picking all my belongings up and they used to take the mickey out of me. And I wasn't in the wrong changing room. I was in the right changing room. And I was told, don't ever put your kit bag in Nasser Hussain's slot or spot ever again. That was his spot. And you know what it's like, even when you're playing at Southchurch Park, you've got Hackney, you've got Spearsy, Newman, Bells, Johners. You've all got your own area. And unfortunately, I picked the wrong guy, and he launched the bag across the room. And I think it was Ilott that took pity on me and said, I think I'm in the wrong place. He said, no, you're not. You're up on the board. And I looked over, and there was an A4 bit of paper that was stuck on. And I remember it was, you had 2 batsmen, and you had your bowlers in the net. And I was up against Nasser Hussain. And that was the realization, is like, this SHIT just got real. And it was great. It was absolutely fantastic. And I was bowling with, like I say, Ashley Cowan, Ilott, Irani, Stucci, Ricky Anderson, Napier. And I actually got Nasser caught behind, 3rd or 4th ball I bowled to him. And I think I just remember going to celebrate with the, the obligatory sort of, the aeroplane that comes out. And I stopped myself doing that because I thought, know your place. And I loved it, absolutely loved it. And I'll never forget that, albeit very short-lived. It was a fantastic time, but I didn't realise exactly what was happening to me. And perhaps I should have done. I didn't take it seriously. I was still going out Wednesday, Thursday, Friday on the lash.
It's not surprised, mate. That's good.
No,
Okay.
Good time.
So back to your team. We're on to 10.
Mate.
Number 10.
So 10 would be Jeremy Lawford. So Lawf's, to look at Lawf's as a cricketer, you'd think no chance, absolutely no chance. He wasn't that athletic build. But on a cricket pitch, God, this guy could bowl. He was fantastic. And, I would quite regularly, I'd open the bat bowling with him, and he'd put it on a sixpence. He was fantastic. He would bowl 25, 26 overs a week. And you'd know exactly what you're going to get from him as well. You'd get wickets, he'd keep it tight one end. But again, batsmen saw him as like, he's not an opening bowler. He's not quick, but he would just tie people down. He was absolutely brilliant. And I learned an awful lot.
On the spot with movement?
No, absolutely, mate. Yeah. And I think, I said I learned a lot from him because back as a young, raw 19, 20-year-old, I was looking for that wicket every ball. Every ball I was looking for a wicket. And he was like, no, just build the pressure. Like Heiser always said, build the pressure and then wickets will come. he was fantastic, great, and he could bat. He definitely could bat as well. He was brilliant. Lofts was great. He was the go-to man. Throw him the ball, he'd tie and end up.
But it suits you, so you could attack and go for runs.
Yeah, no, exactly right, mate. Exactly.
It's what you need with an experienced cricketer. Okay, so number 11, your last man.
So last man, I couldn't split them.
Okay.
And for various reasons, I went for Johnny Horn and Mike Gridley. Two very, very different bowlers, but two very, very consistent bowlers. You know, I think any captain would welcome Johnny Horn or Gridley in their side. And I've played many a game with both of them, and they won games. That's the long and short of it. They were, I think when you saw Bells come up to bowl, you think, I'm going to get after this guy. I'm going to absolutely take him to the cleaners. I'm going to put him over the top. And, teams did, but he would also come back and he would take wickets. He'd win you games. And Gridley the same. I think Gridley was also around when the old man was there. He was he'd always tell you what ball it would turn a mile. He was basically a slow right-arm bowler that did a little bit in the air. But, batsman played for his spin. He didn't spin a ball. He'd tell you to spin the ball, spun the ball miles. Gridley's never spun a ball in his life. But he got drift. He got, he was a very, very good bowler, very smart bowler. And
clever, used the angle well, Gridley. Changed his angle.
Yeah, and I think when you come out, I think we played against him when he was at Old Boys. Yeah. And you always thought, I'm going to get after Gridders. He was the man to get after, and you couldn't get after him. You may get the odd loose ball, but he'd 9 times out of 10, he'd always come back and get you and haunt you. He was a good bowler, very good. Again, mate, I know it's 1 to 11. I can't split them, and I can't leave either of them out just for that very reason. They're both fantastic. And I look back and I think, look, that 1 to 11, and the players I've missed out. I've played with some fantastic players, and when you I think John has mentioned the other day. John has went for I want influential characters. I want my mates in my team. Yeah. And John doesn't get my team. Spearsy doesn't get my team. Cowes, Homer, TK, Chambers, crikey. Yeah. Chambers the most. You look back, you think this guy's got it all. He's technically brilliant. In the nets on January, February time, he was fantastic. But for some reason, I think it was something upstairs that didn't quite resonate, and he just got himself into a bit of a pickle. But Steve Richardson as well. I wouldn't necessarily say I'd ever play with him, but influential characters at certain periods of time.
Yeah, it's a good period to be around the club. That 2005, 2007, 8, 9. Not saying it's bad now. It's just a very, very good time. It's
And to be honest, mate, if I was, I'm absolutely going to come back. There's no question about that. But I would, you got to say to yourself, what would sort of entice you back to the club? And it'd be, no disrespect to the people that are there at the moment, but if you're playing with the likes of Johners, Spearsy, Cowes, Homer, TK, Chambers, it gets you out of bed in the morning. Think, I can't wait to play on a Saturday. Yeah. And the thing is, it's not just playing with your mates. These guys were talented. These are talented cricketers. Oh, yeah. Club cricket. Unsung heroes a little bit. They're match winners, but I couldn't get into my team. I tried. I couldn't get into my team. I didn't want to do a half-hearted. These I want to make it. This is the best team I've played with, and these are the team I want to play with. Yeah. That's it is what it is. That was the team I would pick, and I think that would be a phenomenal team.
It certainly would be. Right. Well, thank you very much, Ben. It's been great speaking to you, hearing about all your players. But no, it's all good. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you.
Cheers, Ratty.